Good afternoon, everyone. Calling to order the meeting of the Buncombe County Board of Elections for Tuesday, November 12th, 2024. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Mr. Whitney informs me we've got some virtual participants. They're all in-house. Those are my favorite virtual participants. Thanks, staff, for tuning in. Call your friends and family. Tell them to tune in, too. All right, the first item of business is approval of agenda. Hope everyone's had a chance to take a look. Without objection, we'll approve the agenda, and hearing none, the agenda is approved. The next item up is office updates.
For office updates, we are well into the canvas period, and we are keeping up. We have, for Thursday's meeting, about 1,400 provisionals to review. That's a little bit more than average, but we will still be able to get those done in that meeting. And then we have less than 40 absentee ballots for that meeting. So very small number of absentees that day as well. So that's coming up on Thursday. And then yesterday's Monday, was our sample audit, where we reviewed 2 randomly selected precincts. They were both election day precincts. And we hand counted those and then matched to the machine results. And Sally and Marianne and Jake were here. It is on. And that was a successful. We had a perfect match, and I think those are all of my updates.
Great.
We're not adding anything to the agenda.
Good. Anyone have any questions, comments? All right, moving right along. Number 3 is ID exception form review.
So that is Victoria, who, unless she's hiding behind the pole, I don't
Nope.
see her.
She's not.
Okay, so this part of the agenda is, I can talk about some of it. So if you remember at our last meeting, we reviewed some ID exception forms for the other reason. Like other was checked on the ID forms. And you asked us to reach out to the voters and let them know options. That was done, so now we need to look at them and decide whether they are acceptable or not. I sent to you by email the notes from the State Board of Election workshop, as well as a template letter, and then you do have the numbered memo probably from the last meeting. If not, AK has printed them out, so we have them again if needed. We did give all of these forms to the state board for their opinion, and their opinion is that they are all acceptable. But the board should review all of them and make a determination today, so that if you all unanimously agree that it is not acceptable, then we can contact the voter for notice of hearing. Does that make sense?
Mr. Quinn, I'm sorry. The state board offered an opinion that all of these were acceptable exceptions. So really, we're being asked to disagree with state board, or one of us.
I just wanted you to have all of the information.
All of us would have to disagree.
All of us would have to disagree with the state board.
And then there were 6 of them initially, but since there has been provisional review, there's one that we think we recommend for disapproval for another reason. So Victoria will show you that one so that you don't, waste time debating that if you agree with our recommendation. And I think I'm ready to turn it over to Victoria.
So we have, we tried to reach out to all the voters. There were, let's see, I will present the first one to you. This voter is a registered voter. He is under the age of 65. He said he does not have means to get to the Board of Elections to provide ID.
Says he does have photo ID.
He does not have a way to get to the Board of Elections to either provide ID or get a photo made in our office.
Is that all the information you received?
And then this voter, they are a registered voter. They're under the age of 65. Their phone number is not a valid number. The phone number we were able to find is not a valid phone number.
And just to double check, staff at the State Board of Elections has reviewed all these and recommended approval?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Did they give any reasons for recommending approval? So we don't
I think,
go over information again?
I think their reason was, regardless of the reason provided, if they submitted a photo ID exception form, it should be approved, unless we know it to be false.
Okay.
No matter, no matter what they say on the ID exception form.
Yes, unless we know the reason to be false. So I think in the numbered memo there's an example provided, which says, you know, if the voter writes in the sky is blue, that is not a valid reason that they would not be able to provide photo ID. So if they provide a reason, as long as it's a reason that they would not be able to provide photo ID at the time that they were voting, then we should accept the.
I think the magic word is present,
Right, yes, I'm sorry.
and that's the issue that we're deciding is do we believe that the reason given by they could not present it is true or false? So,
This voter, it's the same
it's
situation.
a hair splitter, but it's a pretty thick hair.
They are registered to vote, they are under the age of 65, and their phone number is not valid. Same situation here. Registered voter, they are over the age of 65, and their number is not in service. This one, registered voter, under the age of 65. We were not able to find contact information on that voter. And this last voter, we were able to contact. They're registered to vote, under the age of 65, and they are considering coming back to show photo ID or have a photo ID made. There are 6.
If you want to show them, talk to them about the one that you were likely recommending for.
Yes.
Same as the other one.
Okay, this is the odd one, and I brought the provisional voting application, envelope, and everything that came in the provisional voting, or envelope sleeve. So we had the photo ID exception form, but it was not signed. We have the provisional voting application, but it is not signed by the voter, it was signed by the worker. And then we have an acknowledgement notice, which is what is printed out if a voter decides not to vote or vote a provisional ballot. And so they're just acknowledging that the option was given to them, and that is not signed. The ballot inside appears to be filled out. I just saw some black marks, but, so I feel like it's a completed ballot. There is a phone number. We have tried to contact the voter, but the voicemail box is full, and no answers.
What about their registration status?
They are not registered to vote, so it should have been a same-day registration, but because they voted during early voting. But I don't believe that was done. They're nowhere, I was not able to find them in.
Okay, so they were same-day registrant, but it sounds like they didn't go through the whole process.
Right.
Mr. Chairman,
That's
I have a
Brady?
couple of questions.
Yeah.
This one had expired ID and application for a new ID, but no current. Does that mean they had an expired ID with them?
Possibly. I mean, we can only go off of what is on.
Well, that's what it sounds like. I was just trying to confirm. It says the expired ID and application for a new one, which doesn't have a photo, obviously, so they had no current photo ID. That's that one. And this one, it was an expired out-of-state driver's license. I think we asked, were they registered within the 30 days?
Right. No, they were not.
And that's one that the board says we should, the state board.
And for the life of me, I can't figure out why they
Agreed.
provided that direction. I mean, I looked at that thing and said, wait a minute, I understand it on the others, but expired out-of-state ID on the person who's younger than 65. The inconsistency troubles me.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that, their finding is inconsistent with their numbered memo. And that gives me some dis-ease.
Did you, for the first one, with the person who had a photo ID but it expired years ago, was that person over 65?
No.
And that was the one that didn't have transportation to come in.
One more time, I'm not sure I heard the answer to the question. It wasn't your fault, it was mine. So the one that seems to be inconsistent, that didn't have had the expired out-of-state ID, that one was not registered in our system?
They are all registered.
They are registered,
Yes.
thank you.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry.
The only one that is,
These are all registered here?
yes,
Okay,
those are all
All right.
registered. The only one that is not is the one with the provisional voting.
okay.
But the expired driver's license, they were supposed to be registered within 30 days to accept an out-of-state expired license.
Right.
And they were registered before that.
90 days, August 5th.
90 days, yeah.
August 5th was the cutoff.
And they were registered before that, so an out-of-state license is not acceptable. You're supposed to have an in-state
Right.
ID.
Right, within that, if they've registered within that 90 days.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, just so I'm clear, the sixth one, Victoria, was expired out-of-state driver's license. They did register within the 90 days?
No, they registered before the 90 days.
Oh, okay. And they just had an out-of-state driver's license?
And they're younger than 65.
Yeah. And the state board says we ought to take that one. Is that right?
Unless we
Unless we all agree.
unanimously
Well,
reject
what I
it.
prefer to do is just go through these individually, if you don't mind.
The state board's reasoning is that on the photo ID form, once we have decided that it applies, right, that it's not the sky is blue, then the only, we should only be deciding whether it's false or true.
No.
As to whether they could present an ID. Right? That's the issue. And so Stray provide on our form and understand from the cases they've cited that presentment is the issue. Is it, have they stated, do we believe that what they stated is a credible reason not to present it? Well, no, we can't.
Not
be so
credible, just
We
true.
have to decide if it's true or not, period. And, but it has to be relevant to the question of why they could not present an ID. The sky is blue doesn't work because it has nothing to do with whether or not you can present an ID. You know, it's not a contest to see what kind of statement you can make that no one can refute. It's did you get to the issue of why didn't you present an ID? You know, not valid, did you apply, did this, nothing. It's just, why didn't you present your photo ID? That would qualify. And if that, and we're not evaluating their reasoning, we're not evaluating their suspicions, it's just, do we believe or not believe what they said is true as to whether they could not provide photo ID? That's why Sky is Blue doesn't work, because there's nothing to do with whether or not you provided an ID. So, I guess that's where the state is asking us to drill down, and we have to provide a reason.
As you'll recall, in the primary in the spring, we had one voter fill out the photo ID exception form and basically said that they didn't believe in that law. And we did not accept that person's vote.
Which Mr. Quinn, I think, was reasonable in retrospect, because it didn't go to the question of why he couldn't present it. So we never get to the question.
Because
of
he
whether it's true or false.
just didn't believe in it.
Yeah, he just didn't believe it. So that's a falsity as to whether
Right.
it prevents him from presenting a photo ID. That's what makes it false.
But the reason that we gave him that was that he didn't, if you go back and look at the minutes, I think and I accept full blame for this. We didn't reject it based on falsity, we rejected it because they didn't comply with the photo ID law.
Right.
But that is the question of falsity. Is it false that in relation to how it relates to the photo ID law? You know, we don't have to judge whether he's stating his opinion or not. That's not what qualifies it. A true opinion. Is it true or false? You know, does it get to the question of why he didn't present his ID? And if it doesn't, it's false.
Well,
So we were good last time, I think, and I hope we can try that same principle again.
well, I just, as I recall, we just rejected it based on not on truth or falsity. Because I was the stick in the mud who said if they don't comply with the law in terms of presenting a photo ID, they just refuse to comply with the law in the sense of refusing to present a photo ID. That was the reason, which was probably not correct. So I think we just look at, I agree with you, it's just truth or falsity as to whether as to the reason for not presenting a photo ID.
Again, but we did bring a gallon of gasoline. You pour it on yourself.
Well,
Please don't.
mea culpa.
But maybe we'll waive that. We'll waive that requirement this time.
I think this is, that the state board's reasoning in the memo is really weird, but that's how they come out, so be it.
But I appreciate that they make us go through that exercise in detail. That's what they should do. And even agree or disagree, I appreciate that somebody is going to unpack it. And Glenn, thank you for helping me unpack it by going back and looking at this. Because I tend to agree. I don't know that we got focused like we ought to have.
Well, I don't.
It's the first time around, wasn't it? Wasn't that the first one?
Yeah, I was, but
Well, the number memo though specifically stated that, if you don't agree with the law, that's not a reason.
That's a false reason.
No.
It's false because
Anyway.
it doesn't get to the question of why you couldn't present your photo ID.
I would love to entertain motions
Where would you like to start?
at the very
One by one.
beginning.
Okay.
Okay, what's the first one you want a motion on?
Victoria handed them to us in sequence.
I think
and
this is the first one, Victoria. You want to double check and start putting them in order.
Okay, Mr. Quinn,
Mr. Acito,
thank you. I'm willing to make that motion. I'd like some help because I think we need to state the, effectively, plausibly state the reason according to the numbered memo. And, and in that particular case, it was that,
Do we have the number memo again?
no, we don't. But
Yes, we do.
Yes,
Would you also, if you're making a motion, get closer to the mic?
Oh, okay. I'll do that. So the truth or falsity
No.
is over here.
Is in that fourth question or third question?
It was, it's under, it's question,
I think you're probably looking for page 14 or 15.
I'm looking at 14, it's question 16. What can a county board consider when reviewing a voter's photo ID exception form? And in this case, the unanimous decision of falsity after the board provides the voter notice and opportunity to address the board. So I would think that we would call the voter out at this point and see if they want to, if they are here and want to address the board before we take action. And we must substantiate any finding of falsity with grounds recorded in a written decision. That is, we point to specific information before the board that led it to conclude the exception form contains a false statement. Among other things, it may not be based on a personal opinion as to whether the voter's asserted reason is a good reason for not showing an ID. It's not our role to second guess the reasonable of an impedity, but the truth or falsity. And then it goes on to say, a reasonable impediment that bears no relationship to ability to present photo ID when voting in person or including a copy may be rejected for being false. So, in this case, we're done.
Yeah, she's got
You've got
them.
it, okay.
But when we get to that one, we will need to talk about it.
Okay, this is what we're considering now.
Mhm. I don't know if we're considering this one next. We're
Mr.
going to do
Quinn
them in
asked for a
order.
motion.
For one at a time, wasn't it?
and on which ballot are you making a motion?
So you're going to, if you will put the ballot in front of me, it's kind of hard for me to read right now, but I think I can read it sufficiently to make a proper determination.
Jake's not sure which one you want.
It's-
Here,
Just
have
pull
them all.
one out. I mean, and
Let's
then
have them all.
because I'm guessing.
Well,
No,
no,
they're all
I mean, in my estimation, there's some of those that ought to be approved and others that ought to be disapproved. And so that's why
So now
I just want to handle these one by one, because I'm going to vote yes on some, and I'm going to vote no on others.
Okay, so I'm looking at the affidavit, exception form of Ronnie Carroll Burris. And if you would indulge me, Mr. Quinn, let's call him out and see if he's here, so that we've got on the record.
Wouldn't be here until we notify the voter to come, which would probably be on Thursday.
Okay, so that's what we're going to call him out on. We're gonna do the
Right.
motion.
So
I understand.
if the board does not approve the photo ID exception form, we're gonna notify the voter comes in and gets to, defend themselves, or, defend their form. The issue I have with the form in front of you right now is that this individual was asked to present an ID and apparently did not, saying, well, I don't have a current ID. So the presentment did not even occur. That's my interpretation of that. Perhaps Ms. Pickens has more detail.
All right, then Mr. Quinn.
And so this, I'm really at a loss trying to understand where the state is coming from on there's this law, and we all swore an oath to enforce this law. And regardless of one's feelings about the law, it's the law. And I just want to make sure that we have consistency, not only within Buncombe County, but across the state of North Carolina. And I'm seeing something here that troubles me a great deal. Because when we went through those forms, we had some questions about some of them, but I mean, I didn't have questions about a couple of the ones in there. I thought there's no way that they can be approved. This person doesn't have a valid ID, didn't attempt to have a valid ID, didn't even attempt to show us a valid ID. I don't know how we count those, despite the state's instruction.
Well, with the chair's.
Please,
approval,
I need to understand this. Help me.
I'm going to provide a form and a motion for
Okay.
discussion.
Okay, good. Discussion's healthy.
And this is my motion, is that regarding the photo ID exception form submitted by Ronnie Carroll Burris, that I move that this form be rejected by reason that the reason stated has ID but expired years ago bears no relationship to the voters, to the voter's ability to present the photo ID, and is therefore false.
Thank you, Mr. Aceto. The motion before the board is to disapprove the photo ID exception form described by our colleague on the basis that it does not comply with the requirements in the numbered memo.
And
I think we need to be a little more specific. That can certainly be part of the motion. But it does not comply with the number memo in that is that the reason has ID but expired years ago bears no relationship to the voter's ability to present a photo ID.
Thank
In
you.
accordance with the number
The number
memo,
memo.
paragraph 16.
I just wanted to confirm, I've been making notes, but they get a little disjointed. Is this a fellow who told you over the phone that he didn't have transportation?
Yes.
And is therefore false. That's what we're finding.
All right, the motion before the board is to not approve this particular photo ID exception form because,
AK,
if you wouldn't mind reading it back.
Reading it back.
Well, because, AK, the importance is that this is what is going to be documented to the individual.
Right. The problem is that normally when y'all get this wordy, I rewatch the recording when I put it in the minutes. But
Take a stab.
it was, that, and I didn't even get his full name, but Ronnie Burris's form was rejected by reason that it does not comply with, I honestly did miss a lot of that.
The numbered memo.
Yeah, the number doesn't comply with the number memo.
2023-03.
And I know that you said false in there.
No,
Okay, all right, well, let's
because
just-
there was nothing on his photo ID exception form that explained why he could not present a photo ID.
Well, let's slow down and take this one word step at a
Okay,
time.
good.
I always try to think of these things. What would a gimlet-eyed trial lawyer say if he saw this? Or she? That is, That's why I want to take the word provide out and put the word present, things
Present,
like
yes,
that
present.
are what cases turn on, off. So here, what that motion is that the exception form of Ronnie Carroll Burris be rejected by reason that the statement of reasonable impediment that he has ID but expired years ago bears no relationship to his ability to present the photo ID when voting in person, and is therefore false for purposes of numbered memo 2023-03, paragraph 16.
Are we ready for discussion, or you gonna, are you?
Make
yeah,
sure AK
let's make
got it.
AK got it.
What I have is that the photo ID exception form of Ronnie Carroll Burris be rejected by reason that the statement of reasonable impediment that he has an ID but expired years ago bears no relationship to his, I think, ability to present.
Slow down, now let's get it. To his ability to present.
The photo ID in person and is therefore false for purposes of numbered memo 2023-03, paragraph 16.
Thank you. Thank you. We have
That's
heard,
my motion.
the motion before the board. Is there any discussion? Ms. Stein?
Yes. So in the staff's finding that when this person was talked, with which this person was talked, whatever that, without dangling participle there, anyway, they said they didn't have transportation. Okay, so does that shift how we look at this now that we got more information from that phone call?
We're looking at this one right here. Then you talk about the other one.
All right, so this one, is that correct,
This
Victoria?
is specific to the Ronnie Carroll
So Burris
ID
was
form.
not right to the form, but when she was following up on that form, she talked with this man, is that correct?
So I did not talk to him.
Okay.
Another
A staff person
person
talked with him, and that's when he said that he didn't have transportation. Now, does that become a valid reason after the follow-up with the staff?
How? You have an affidavit there. That information that you just described and that person related over the phone isn't there. He did not sign a form with that on there.
All right, so in that
I'm
case.
struggling here,
All right,
folks.
well, in that case, then we wouldn't follow up with any of the forms? I don't understand what the purpose of follow-up would be if it's not clear on this form.
The purpose of follow-up is to give them an opportunity to present an ID.
Right.
Not for them to present further justification.
That's the
I think
question.
that's pretty clear. in
That's the
here.
question, okay.
But, yeah,
And so, I mean, today, we're going to vote on these 7. Those that are approved, then they don't need to worry about anything. Their vote will count.
No, I understand.
Those that aren't approved, they're going to have a chance on Thursday if they want to come in and defend their photo ID exception form.
Was there more you wanted to say? Ms.
Yes,
Thompson?
I think that you just got to it, but, today you are voting as a board of whether you think there is,
On this form?
some, yes,
Yeah,
some, reason to get more information from the voter at a hearing on Canvas.
Got
And
it.
then at the hearing on Canvas is when you decide, after talking to this person, the falsity or not. Does
Okay,
that-
and Mr. Quinn, if I may.
Please.
I'm again reading from 16 of the numbered memo. Importantly, it is not the county board's role to second guess the reasonableness of a voter's asserted impediment. Instead, the board is only concerned with the truth or falsity of the assertion on the form
Okay.
that an identified impediment is preventing the voter from showing
A photo ID.
So those are magic words, and it is on the form. Is there an identified impediment to preventing the voter? Our decision is that identified impediment on the form, true or false, and it can be false on the basis of information that is contrary, or it can be false on the basis that it doesn't get to the question
Right.
of why I couldn't present a photo ID.
Right.
So we are not suggesting that the information is false, we are suggesting that the premise is false.
It is the board's or the state board's position that you just evaluate the truth and falsity of the statement given regardless of whether it would prevent a voter from presenting a photo ID? Is that how you understand it, Corinne?
I've had many discussions about this.
Who'd y'all talk to over there? Paul Cox?
Adam Steele,
He's also on the legal staff.
yes.
The other question I had is, if the voter shows up at Canvas and says, I didn't have transportation, so my vote should be counted, wouldn't that be tantamount to trying to submit another photo ID exception form? And by that point, it would be too late and unsuccessful.
In other words, is there anything that he could tell us that would change it?
Yeah, or it could change it.
Yeah, is there any provision in the law that permits a voter to amend their photo ID exception form?
There's something in one of the numbered memos, I couldn't begin to find it in the next 15 minutes, that said something about a voter goes to the polls, votes a provisional ID, casts a provisional ballot, and then tries to bring in a photo ID exception form later. That's not allowed. Right?
Correct, yes, they have to fill it out at the polling location.
So is that not, just analogy, wouldn't his coming to the Canvas and saying, well, what you said, trying to essentially amend his photo ID, isn't that tantamount to trying to submit another photo ID exception form? That's a rhetorical question, not a question.
I know, uncharted territory.
question-
What you're essentially asking is, at the hearing, what would you base
What would be
findings
acceptable,
on?
right.
Yes,
Yeah.
I
Mr.
don't know.
Quinn,
Commissioner
I know
Cito?
we had at least one form where something very similar happened. Someone wrote, I lack transportation. They didn't check the box, but they wrote it under other reasonable impediment. And we decided that that was sufficient. That it didn't matter that he or she checked the wrong box. It just, this statement was on there that we could make it an adequate determination of truth or falsity.
Right.
And get to that question, did it pertain to whether they could present an ID? And yes, we could,
Right.
from what was on the form.
They wrote that on the form and they signed it.
Yes, and they signed it.
Exactly. So,
And
so we knew.
And Glenn, I think rightly, rhetorically asked the question, if somebody later shows up with with different information than was on the form, and then it doesn't help us with the truth or falsity of the photo ID exception form itself.
Correct. Because basically, if folks could come in, amend their forms, everyone could come in and check natural disaster, and that would be that. And I don't believe that is what the law envisions. I mean, people were asked to present ID when they went to vote. Those who didn't present ID or were unable to present ID filled out a form. And that form is supposed to describe or explain why they did not or were unable to present the photo ID.
And this, again, our memo, if you'll indulge me, 16, truth or falsity as to why they are prevented from presenting a photo ID when they show up to vote, if voting in person or with their absentee ballot when voting by mail.
Right.
So that, I think, goes to Glenn's rhetorical question is, can you show up with something later? The magic time is when they show up to vote, and bringing something in that later that is I mean, it's over. The evidentiary window has shut.
You could put on the form, I've got it, I forgot to bring it in, and I'm gonna bring it in. That's okay.
Yeah, you bring it in.
Right.
Yeah, that's, we don't even have to get to truth or falsity on that statement. They just cheered it.
Well,
All
there's,
right. Okay, Mr. Schultz?
Well, this doesn't have anything to do with the discussion, but it sounds like a strict interpretation of the law, but good golly, we just rejected that poor woman's ballot out in Alameda County based on a strict interpretation of the law.
Right, right.
So,
A woman who I am absolutely positive was telling us the truth over the phone, and it was an oversight on her part not to have that second witness signature.
Right.
But the law was really clear on that.
By the way, I thought you handled that extremely well. Thank you.
No, thank you, Mr. Aceto. That was the second most difficult vote I've had on this board. The first one being a couple weeks before that. All right, so there is a motion before the board to disapprove Mr. Burris's photo ID exception form. Any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please.
If you want to speak, you should stand up and ask to speak.
I didn't know if you all were going to let, have a time for public comment later, but if
You
the
have
board
to
will let me,
ask.
I'm happy to.
Okay, yeah, all you have to do is seek recognition from me, and there's always time for a public comment. Always at the end of the meeting, I'll ask if anybody has any
Great.
questions or
I just wanted to provide
comments.
some additional information and didn't know if you all
Okay,
wanted
well-
to recognize me if I stood up, but I appreciate you indulging me. First, I want to highlight that the motion before the board now would establish a finding by the board of falsity of this photo ID exception form, which you cannot do until you've given the voter notice and an opportunity to be heard. So you could make a motion to notify the voter that you are going to hold a hearing on their photo ID exception form, and here are the reasons that it's considered potentially to be false. But you cannot vote today on whether or not this particular exception form is false without first giving notice and an opportunity to be heard, if that makes sense.
That makes sense to me. I think that is a worthwhile distinction.
And then,
Mr. Aceto, hold on just a second, please, Patrick. That was your motion, and do you understand the comment
Yeah,
on this
let me
one?
hear the rest of what he
Okay.
has to say, and then I'll respond to it.
and then Administrative Rule 08 NCAC 17.0101 sets forth a few things that notice to the voter has to encompass, which I think goes to this question of what information the voter can provide at a hearing before the board when they're considering the falsity of the form. And it says, the notice shall identify the specific reasons the county board is considering the affidavit to be potentially false and inform the voter how the voter may address the reasons for potential falsity, which shall include the options to provide a written explanation or documentation or to address the board at a meeting in person. So that's indicating that a voter does have the ability to come in and provide information to you themselves as to whether or not what they put on their affidavit is true or false. So I think that is what they would be able to provide you when they come in if they come in after they've been given notice and an opportunity to be heard.
Yeah, understood, and the board would listen and evaluate what the individual had said and whether or not it was responsive. But no, thank you for the.
Yeah, let's camp out on that a minute.
Okay.
Because I think we touched on that earlier. before we pass a motion or even consider it further, I want to, thanks, I appreciate that. And kind of work through the mechanics of it. Is that there's kind of a chicken egg thing going on here. One is that our voter needs to respond to a reason. So that means a reason must be given. And does that necessarily originate from a motion by the board, or does that come, is the board, advising staff, how do we establish the reason that they're going to, the thing they're going to respond to? We got this earlier, we're going to call the guy out, where is he? And rightly so, the chairman says, not yet, that's not right. So hey, what do you think?
Well, I think you can establish the reasons you are evaluating, like considering this reasonable exception form to be false, and establish that in a way that you, however you want to instruct staff to reach out to.
Well, that's the question, and I'm asking for some input. Is that what is the proper way? Because we have to create a record.
Mm-hmm.
We have to create a record. The only way I know to create a record is to make a motion. And it could be, and I'm thinking out loud, is that my motion is changed to the extent that I'm not making a finding of falsity, I'm making a finding of a reason. I'm asking that this be communicated to the voter as the reason why their affidavit is false.
It's the reason for a hearing.
The reason for a hearing, yes, that's right. And so now they know what they're responding to, which should be helpful. Now, the further part of your comment, which was that they can, the idea that the administrative code gives them the right to bring explanation, I would understand that to mean it's limited to an explanation of why their statement should be considered true or false, not a whole new justification for not presenting an ID, but they have the opportunity. Due process requires that they have the opportunity to respond to a determination of falsity for the reason stated, which is that it doesn't go to the question of why you couldn't present an ID in person to vote. So tell us more about that and we'll hear it. But come in and tell me a different reason or expand on your reason. No, can't. We're past that point. But
Right.
By all means, address the question that we're trying to address. So and help us out with that. We could always use a little help. So anyway, so coming back to the motion, and Corinne, you can, what would you want to see in a motion that the board is making that is giving you the basis to come back to the voter? I stated a reason. What I'm hearing is that I cannot make a motion to reject. I can only make a motion to help me.
To request-
What am I calling it?
To request that the respondent come in for a hearing
On the question of,
on the question of their photo ID exception form.
as to,
In every single case, we're looking for more information. We're looking for some elaboration on this thing.
are we giving him our reason?
I
We need
think that
to.
you should say possible falsity.
Yes,
Steve,
based on what I stated, which was that it did not,
In paragraph 16.
yeah, whatever 16 was.
And-
I'll tell you what, it's hard getting old and trying to maintain a public office with some sort of dignity. It's
Do you
just
want me to
really-
reread to you what you said?
Yeah, go ahead.
Member Cito made a motion regarding the exception form of Ronnie Carroll Burris be rejected by reason that the statement of reasonable impediment that he has an ID but expired years ago bears no relationship to his ability to present the photo ID in person and is therefore false for purposes of numbered memo 2023-03 paragraph 16.
I think you've got to say something about in the affidavit, or the something in the motion about it being false, because that regulation that the gentleman back here was reading from,
Sure, so, but we can't
Indicates
reject
that.
it. We can say proposed to be rejected.
yeah,
Does
or
that cover it?
just finds that it's false.
We propose to reject it. but-
Okay.
And leave the
Yeah,
rest of it as
yeah,
it
yeah,
is,
that's-
rather
that-
than
that-
say
that's good.
rejected. I think he's right. We can't take the action to reject, but we must take the action to propose a reason.
Correct.
So that's, okay, that's a suggestion, rather than the word rejected, we'll say proposed to be rejected. And, by reason that, so now he's got his reason, and, our
There,
witness is standing again. I think.
Yeah, no, go ahead, please.
That same regulation that I was reading does say that the notice has to give the specific reason the county board is considering the affidavit to be potentially false. So you could say, something to the effect of, we are considering this to be false at a hearing later this week based on, our interpretation that your reason on the reasonable impediment form does not go to whether or not you can or cannot present a photo ID.
Okay, so we're saying proposed to be rejected by reason that.
Correct.
And those are the magic words that I wanted to slip in there instead of rejected, proposed to be rejected. And that should give him enough to go on. And as to the remaining 4 affidavits, let me suggest that can be a template, but we'll still have to consider in each case, what is the reason, what is the reason that it is or is not going to the question of falsity, of reasonable impediment. That's the question, is there a reasonable impediment? And I don't recall if the others all get to that point, but.
Oh, I'd say they're all
but
different.
That's my motion.
I wanted to handle them individually because they each seem to have their
Well, I
own
think we have to.
wrinkle.
I agree, absolutely. Even if they were identical, we still would have to handle them
Okay.
individually.
All right, so there is an amended motion before the board, and the motion is not to reject, but to,
So, can I just read the motion?
Please.
To make sure we're all happy with it. Member Aceto made a motion regarding the exception form of Ronnie Carroll Burris, that the board proposes to reject, his form by reason that the statement of reasonable impediment that he has an ID but expired years ago bears no relationship to his ability to present the photo ID in person and is therefore false for purposes of numbered memo 2023-03 paragraph 16. Is there anything?
Yes,
Is there
that
any-
is my motion. And we can't make an omnibus motion because we're not driving an omnibus. I'm not.
So, does that
Anyway,
mean
carry
that
on.
it doesn't have to be unanimous for it to,
That's a good question. That's another good question, AK. I'm thinking since we're not actually making a finding of falsity,
Right.
it doesn't have to be unanimous, does it? Then that gives the board a second bite at it, essentially, after they've heard from the voter, which is exactly as it should be.
Which numbered memo are we referring?
2030.
2023-03.
Yeah. The numbered
I got it.
memo says that a decision that the form is false must be unanimous and can only be made after the county board provides the voter notice and an opportunity to address the board on any grounds.
So we couldn't make that decision anyway.
Yeah.
But we can vote on the reason, by implication, even if we're not all agreed on the reason, we're gonna have to come to agreement if we're gonna reject it. But we would wanna hear, the point is that we hear from the voter first anyway.
right, but it is still my expectation that of these 7 forms, some of them are going to be okay. Some of them we're going to be fine with the explanation, considering the additional input we've received from the state. We happen to start off with one where that wasn't the case. Anyway,
A couple of just housekeeping questions. So I presume when this letter is sent, that a copy of this goes with it? Because I too, like Mr. Aceto, am a little concerned that we might spend a good deal of time hearing about other reasons that he, at that point, wants to bring up. And so is there a way to make sure that we are only talking about number 4, or how to make that as clear as we can in that letter, that, reasonable impediment is number 4 on the exception number 1 form somehow, so that there's not an opportunity to spend that extra time when he.
That's a really good question, and I am not interested in reinventing any wheels. Do we have anything that the State Board of Elections has provided to help us with this?
I think I sent this in an email to you earlier, the template letter, and,
Yeah, this is the template letter.
And it
I
says-
would be, he says, documents you feel are, your letter will say, documents you feel are relevant to the county board's consideration of the statements on your photo ID exception form. And I sure wouldn't go beyond that, because we wouldn't want to appear to be, be chilling any intent to bring evidence to the board. But Paul Cox nailed it pretty good there, I think, as far as it gives Jake a basis to gently remind the witness that
Right.
that we're looking for documents that are relevant.
and we're happy
In other,
to send the
it's
copy
an
of the form.
evidentiary standard, relevant material.
Yeah.
So
I have a question.
Ms. Brain?
If this gentleman were to respond to our letter and show up with that expired photo ID, how does that affect this? I'm just curious.
well, if I understand correctly, the ID can be brought prior to canvass. And is that not correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's the instruction given to the voter here.
Bring the
But
evidence.
I understand Ms. Brain's question. It's like, okay.
Well, the reason I ask it is.
So what if he brings it in? It's still
Well,
not
we're talking
compliant with the law.
specifically about his reason. His reason was he had a photo ID that had expired years ago.
Right,
So if he brings in that photo ID, that expired years ago.
right.
If it's more than a year, we wouldn't accept it from anyone unless they were 65.
And Mary Ann, I think that's exactly the intent, is that what he's done when he brings in presents a photo ID is, we could throw this in the trash because he's presented a photo ID. He has the right and opportunity to do that. Now we're considering a photo ID. We're not considering a reason
Falsity.
why he didn't.
Right.
We're not considering falsity.
Right.
We're just looking at the document and
see if
deciding
it's-
whether it's an
See if it's
eligible photo
acceptable,
ID.
right.
And we can breathe a sigh of relief, because this is no longer
Right.
a
Now,
concern of ours.
Mr. Aceto, I understand your interpretation, and I happen to agree with it completely. I'm not sure that that's the interpretation that our friends in Raleigh have, and that is going to be my concern until we get through canvass and get through the state canvass on the 26th.
Well, my suggestion on that would be to review the actual statutes that are at the bottom of this memo in the meantime, because that should be what this numbered memo is based on.
Right.
And if it doesn't comply with those statutes,
Right.
then
Yeah.
it
Victoria.
doesn't comply.
Victoria, could this fella come in and get a voter ID made, and the ballot would be
Mhm.
okay?
People have been doing that since the middle of last week. We reopened the photo ID business on Wednesday. And some people have been getting those photo IDs to comply with the law so their vote could count this time.
I think he ought to be told that in the letter.
I have no problem with that, but the folks who need to hear it are down here. They're the letter senders. What do you think?
So, there's a debate happening next to me. So, again, this is all new. I feel like the spirit of the law is to have people show a photo ID that matches who they are. There is some debate about whether you can bring in a photo ID if you filled out a photo ID exception form.
Hmm.
I don't have an opinion on that right now.
That's a debate at the state level or
That's a debate right here.
here?
Sorry.
Okay.
That the ones that are coming in currently are ones that didn't have a photo ID exception. They just had a provisional ballot and they didn't bring their ID at the day of voting? What's happening between Wednesday and Friday? What are those? Who are those folks that are coming through?
If you said, if you did a provisional saying, I will bring my ID
Right.
to the office, then you can come and. you can
Exactly. It
make
has
an
nothing to do with the photo ID exception form.
Exception form, correct.
Yeah, Mr. Quinn, this is saying, it appears to be conditional on having voted a provisional ballot. So we're assuming that these represent, all represented by provisional ballots. So number 13, and to some extent 11 and 12 are preceded. Can a voter obtain a photo ID after they have voted provisionally in person? Or, let's see here, yes, they can, if the photo ID meets all the criteria to be accepted and the voter presents it to the county board by 5 o'clock. Who's responsible for reviewing a voter's photo ID when they bring it to the county board office? They will have it reviewed for all legal compliance with all legal requirements, just as if they had shown the ID when voting in person. And
But that's not a photo ID exception form. They're talking about what we were just saying, that someone that doesn't have their ID the day of voting, they complete a provisional vote,
but
then they bring it in.
That is the person who presented a photo ID form.
No, there's
Is there a distinction?
two.
Please.
There's two different ways to vote provisionally if you didn't have an ID when you went to go vote. One of them is to say, I will come back to the office before 5 p.m. the day before canvass and bring in a photo ID. That also could mean we make a photo ID, a voter, if they're registered and verified, make that voter ID, that would count. Then there's the exception form, which is filling out the exception form. And so those are two different provisional methods of voting if you don't have any, but they're separate from each other.
Is the cure different?
That's what we were debating. I thought that if you did the exception form, that was it. It does not matter. Even if you had a photo ID to bring, like you left it at home and checked that, my understanding, but could be wrong, was that you then couldn't because you chose the ID exception.
Why is that your understanding?
I was trying to read to see if I knew why that was my understanding.
Okay, but that's helpful because you're dialing that issue in a little better, and I'm gathering that Jake is over there struggling with it too.
But I definitely wouldn't take what I just said as law unless I could find something that there's a lot of information that goes in, so I might have just made that, made assumptions, so.
You're getting back to what is the spirit of the photo ID law, and to what extent does it matter that you presented an exception form if you cured it before canvass?
Well, I'd be kind of concerned about saying in a letter what he can do to fix the problem, because that could be seen as coaching one voter.
It
Whereas
specifically
we don't-
says in the statute that we should give him that. If you look in,
Yeah.
the statute is 8 NCAC 17-0101. And notice shall identify specific reasons the county board is considering the affidavit to be potentially false and inform the voter of how the voter may address the reasons for potential falsity, which shall include the options to provide written explanation or documentation or to address the board at a meeting in person. County board shall send the notice via U.S. mail within 1 business day of the board's preliminary findings, blah, blah, blah. And that is section E, number 1. So it does say to provide them with what they can do.
Which is what this letter says, right? This template that we have here.
Paul Cox letter.
The Paul Cox letter.
Well, I'm taking his name in vain.
Is there any way to, is it important that we get clarity between the photo ID exception form and being able to bring in an ID? You know, can they bring it in on this photo exception form, or do we have to keep those two separate?
So this is the first time that it has been questioned whether the voter could bring in a photo ID. I think they can. The state, we asked a different question from the state, and they said provide the voter the opportunity to bring in ID. We called them all and told them that already. So we would be going back on that. We only, I think we only we're in contact with 2 of them. I am going to text Paul Cox right now and see if I can get an answer as well. This is a gray area, definitely. It's new. We run into these things as we go through new laws. So I'm happy to get an opinion, another from Paul. We already have one opinion from the state, but in email, which we're happy to forward to you if you would like.
Well, the statute that I was quoting, when you go down to number 2, it also says to vote provisionally, a provisional ballot, then bring the office of the County Board of Elections identification acceptable under the provision before 5 p.m. on the business day before county canvass.
And that has
So
always
that's
been.
directly following what it said we can see in
That's
the
always
Right.
been the rule
information.
for other photo ID too.
Right, number 1 says execute an affidavit.
Right,
Number 2 says bring in your photo ID,
yes.
separate. So, photo ID exception form with the first one, provisional ballot, I promise to bring in the ID with the second one.
Exactly.
You might want to come back to this one.
Yeah, I'm thinking there are others that we reviewed that are less controversial.
Let's do that.
What do you think about, what, we could vote on this motion without getting the answer to that question, I would think. Because that's more about what are we gonna do when we get there. So, if you are ready to receive the question, then I would ask the chair to make that determination, if the board's ready to vote on it.
All right. Y'all recall the motion. Any more questions or comments?
I think we'd have
Ms.
to
Bray?
change the motion from to disapprove to refer
Yeah, and
to
that's,
notify the
I
voter.
think we've
that,
done
that's reflected in the language now. It would be referred for hearing. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Thank you. That motion carries 5-0.
Thank you for the discussion, and thank you for the input.
Yeah, no, this is the first general election that we've had to grapple with photo ID.
Yep.
And so a learning experience for us all. The primary, I don't know, these issues didn't get raised.
More voters, more
Numbers,
chance.
yep.
Yes.
Yeah. All righty, 1 down, 6 to go.
Okay.
I don't have them.
Victoria has them, I believe.
No, they're down there.
No, they're down there somewhere.
Stand up with them.
Yeah.
Touched them last.
Quinn, why don't you pull one you like?
Number 2 was forgot photo ID. They should be in order.
Yeah, what this one says is the voter checked the number 4 box, other reasonable impediment, and the reason given was, quote, ID was taken by police, close quote.
No, that was farther down. Number 2 was just forgot ID.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, you're right. Yes, forgot photo ID. That's the one I was reading from, is the third one. The voter checked number 4, the reason given, quote, forgot photo ID.
True
Mr. Quinn, I
statement.
would suggest it's the same
I'd-
motion as last time.
I'd say the voter told the truth on that one.
Yeah, but it wasn't,
Exactly.
it just wasn't responsive.
Well, I'm not presenting photo ID because I forgot it. But yeah, no, I agree. And so, we're going to use the same motion for the ballot of whom?
I'm perfectly willing
What
to
is
make
the
that
name on
motion
that?
again unless someone else wants to make a different one.
Because this is true, the form may be false, so the form might not be false if we use this letter. I mean, we've decided that it's a true statement, right? We were
Well, but
taking him
it's
for
true but
true.
not responsive.
So we need to
That's our-
change the
that's
letter
what
to
we
being,
That's all right.
Azaria
It's
Atkins, I
truth for
think.
purposes of the statute. And we put that in our motion. So should the motion be carried into the letter? Is that maybe what we need to do?
I don't think we can say in a letter that it's false.
Well, just that we propose to find it false so
There
that
they
they've
are.
got something to
That's number
respond
2.
to. That's the whole idea, is that they've got something specific to respond to.
But it's not a false statement.
Well, we haven't got that far.
I think that the state board would say that that forgetting your ID was an impediment to presenting.
And that's something we can have a conversation about. I mean, is that truly an impediment?
If everyone forgot to bring their IDs, I think we'd have a problem.
We wouldn't have a photo ID law.
Precisely.
And maybe that's the idea. I don't know.
I,
If it is, it is. We don't get to judge the law. We just have to,
no,
we can't do that.
the
do
difficulty
that.
I'm having is understanding the state's interpretation. That was shared with us at the time of this meeting.
Yeah, agreed.
And
Do we have that email?
The email from,
Adam Steele.
oh, yeah.
Well, Mr. Quinn, I'm willing to offer a motion if you wish, or someone, unless someone else wants to grab a hold of put the bell on the cat.
Mr. Aceto, you're the nominee,
Okay,
It's Azaria Atkins.
is the voter.
okay. And I believe my motion is the same as with Mr. Burris, other than to change the name to protect the voter.
Okay, so you're gonna say, will you spell the person's name for me?
It's right here.
There it is.
Maybe a training opportunity for the staff as well.
Okay, so you wanna say that and regarding the exception form of Azaria Atkins, the board proposes to reject, sorry, I'm just changing some pronouns, or taking away the pronouns. Proposes to reject the form by reason that the statement of reasonable impediment that forgot ID bears no relationship to their ability to present the photo ID in person and is therefore false for purposes of numbered memo 2023-0316.
That is my motion.
Do you want to know Adam Steele's?
Yeah, please.
Yes.
So, if a voter has completed a photo ID exception form, then the board should review the form. Yes, we know. If you have no information that indicates these voters were not being truthful when completing the forms, then these other statements all look to be fine reasons for why someone would not have a photo ID with them when they showed up to vote.
So he did not answer your question.
Oh, this is the email that we
Oh,
got
that's the
previous
email.
from,
Okay.
from Adam. I don't have a response from Paul yet, and that's for asking for the photo
Separate
ID.
question. Mr. Quinn, I think you have a commenter who seeks to be recognized.
Oh, hey, Patrick.
Thank you. I would say that I understood this particular objection to the previous reasonable impediment form. This one, I think the state board's interpretation is that the law is whether or not a person has an impediment to presenting an ID when they are going to vote. So a person showing up to the polls that has left their ID at home, it is true that they cannot present an ID when they are presenting to vote because they do not have it with them. I think in the numbered memo, this question of whether or not a reason is responsive to the question of whether or not a person can present an ID, the state board gave the example of someone putting the sky is blue, which obviously does not have any rational relationship to or bear on whether or not a person can or cannot present an ID in the polling place. But if a person has just forgotten their ID at home, then they truthfully have no way of presenting a photo ID to an election worker at a polling place. And also, I think there was some question on how many of you had to vote for a motion to give the voter notice about a hearing so that you all can rule on whether or not a form is false. I can dig deeper to find the particular citation, but I do believe it's one less than the full board, so 4 out of 5 of you would have to vote to give notice.
I think that's correct, but 5 of us voted too.
I
so.
know, I'm just saying for
Yeah.
future.
But
votes on-
to-
Right, yeah, we've had meetings in the past where one vote to approve was sufficient to approve a photo ID exception form.
Yeah, we're rarely unanimous about that. We randomly rebel against the
Right,
majority.
right,
And
but-
you can't never
I
tell
just-
who's gonna do it.
I was saying it has to be 4 out of 5 of you vote that on the potential validity of this to move forward with giving the voter.
it's
notice.
I
My
don't,
motion is on the floor. I'm gonna leave it there and you all discuss it and then we'll take that vote. And I think we could do consideration to this suggestion that if any one of you, if we don't have a unanimous vote, then we may be done with that application. That may very well be true.
it seems like what we've really focused on from the numbered memo is this sentence, and it really guides and it's what you started out with, Steve. It says, accordingly, if the county board finds that other close quote reasonable impediment bears no relationship to a voter's ability to present photo ID when voting in person, or including a copy of an ID when voting absentee, and therefore the form is false, then disapproval of a voter's provisional ballot upon that finding would comply with the law. I mean, that's what the linchpin is in all of this so far.
And that's what the motion goes to.
Am I understanding that?
Asking you to make that determination now and vote.
All right, there is a motion before the board. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Thank you, that motion carries 5-0.
So we're gonna take another bite after we've heard from this.
Right. Let's look at this one, just like the last one.
Pretty much the same as the last one.
Can somebody read it, please, so we can,
Yeah, this is someone who forgot their ID at home.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, other, she forgot and left her ID at home.
That's fine, I don't need to see it then.
You wanna see it, Steve?
No,
We've
I've
seen
seen
it,
it. I'll
we've seen it. So, any reason to shift? Can we just have Mr. Aceto do
I'll
this
make that
again?
motion again and observe that, you know, we're looking to uphold this law, and if the law swallows itself up in its own reasoning, then that's what it does.
Okay.
You know, we're not being asked to fix it. But nonetheless, to put something before you, I'm making the motion.
All right.
I intend to vote for it, but
And just so y'all know, that this relates to the photo ID exception form of Elizabeth Mabin Sumi. Elizabeth Mabin, M-A-Y-B-I-N. See, if you were a baseball fan, you'd know how to spell that name. Sumi, S-U-M-M-E-Y.
S-U-M-M.
E-Y.
not Summy?
Sue me. Sue me for my pronunciation. Sue me for it. I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce that surname. That was a,
I've always heard Summy.
okay, my bad.
Somebody, but if
Sorry.
you're playing baseball, it could be different.
Well, no, that was the middle name. That was Mabin. Everyone,
Yeah, everybody knows.
everyone remembers the killer. Come on. Cameron Mabin. Great ball player. Anyway, the motion, it's the same motion that is before the board with respect to Ms. Summey's photo ID exception form, where number 4 was she forgot and left her ID at home. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Can I read it just to make sure that it is? I just want to make sure. Made a motion that regarding the exception form of Elizabeth Mabin Sumi, the board proposes to reject the form by reason that the statement of reasonable impediment that forgot their ID at home bears no relationship to their ability to present the photo ID in person and is therefore false for purposes of number memo 2023-03 paragraph 16.
That is my motion.
Just making sure.
Or what?
All right, the next one we have, box number 4 is checked, and the other reasonable impediment is expired out-of-state driver's license. Was there any more information about this voter? It is Michael Stephen Schaefer.
We did not have any contact information on that voter.
Okay.
Was this fella, what was the name again?
Schaefer. Michael Stephen.
Was this the person who was under 65 requested or registered during the 90-day period?
Yeah, he registered,
I'm
he was
sorry.
registered before the 90-day, right?
He was, yes.
Before the
All of
90-day
these-
period, yeah.
All of these were registered before.
Interesting.
We've seen
Steve?
That's the, I'm familiar with it. Thank you.
I'll take another look at that.
We have also found previously out-of-state driver's license if you're registered before 90 days is unacceptable.
Right.
It's just,
it.
Right.
If they have it, yeah.
Yeah, it was like August 6th or something was the cutoff.
But there was no ID here. They didn't present the expired one either.
I'm not sure. I don't know if they presented the expired.
Well, it says an out-of-state expired driver's license, so I'm assuming they must have seen it if they wrote that down.
Or, I don't know, maybe the voter just wrote it down and that was
Yeah,
that.
possible to know,
But
really,
we'll,
I guess.
we'll find out in the hearing.
Yep.
That's why we have a hearing.
All righty. I would entertain a motion that sounds probably a whole lot like the first three that we voted on. Four.
This is fourth, yeah.
This is the fourth, right, the first three.
And the name? You've got the name, right?
I have the name, is it still, Member Cito making the motion? Or somebody else?
Yes, he can.
He's pretty eloquent with these motions.
Great, can I repeat it again?
Sure.
But actually, can I have the reason that, you said out of state?
Expired out-of-state driver's license.
So you, well, I'll let her.
So
Go
I
ahead.
have that it reads, Member Aceto made a motion that in regarding the exception form of Michael Stephen Schaefer, the board proposes to reject the form by reason that the statement of reasonable impediment that expired out-of-state driver's license bears no relationship to their ability to present the photo ID in person and is therefore false for purposes of number memo 2023-03, paragraph 16.
So we're saying that his expired out-of-state driver's license bears no relationship whatsoever to a voter's ability to present a photo ID when voting in person.
The statement,
I'm sorry?
the statement. And if the,
Use of a photo, use of an out-of-state license is
This-
only acceptable if you've registered within the 90 days before the election.
I understand that, but
And I'm assuming that he filled out a photo ID exception form because he gave them an expired driver's license, and they said this is an out-of-state driver's license, so they had him fill out a photo ID exception.
but again, we can't assume that, but it would be an absurdity to say that if he came up and showed a license and it was reviewed and found to be ineligible, that by simply saying, I have an expired driver's license, suddenly that flips and becomes, a statement that he can use to vote, is utterly absurd. I hope we don't go there.
well, what happens if he was registered to vote?
Right.
Under the statute, photo ID statute, he could present an out-of-state driver's license.
Only if he had registered to vote within 90 days of the
It
election.
was before that.
Yeah, we have, as a board, we've already rejected one this year for the same reason.
He had to have registered to vote before.
No,
The
within,
No.
within the 90 days. If he registered on August 6th to October 12th, then that would have been fine.
Yeah, they're saying, well, you didn't have enough time to get
Yeah,
an
but
in-state ID.
What about the photo ID exception, or the photo ID statute says that you can use an out-of-state driver's license? Does it say in there it has to, does it have that qualification about registering in the 90 days? Is that what the statute says?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was thinking about if it was a ID, expired out-of-state driver's license, but he got the additional year, but he does not get that under the statute.
Right. If you're a new registrant, there's flexibility. But if you've been registered in North Carolina for more than 90 days, you're expected to have the ID.
The driver's license, okay. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Cito, for your fourth motion. Anyone have any questions about the motion? Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Thank you. The motion carries 5-0. Director Duncan, did you have a comment, question?
So Paul Cox confirmed that they can supply a photo ID before 5 PM, the day before campus.
Even if they could.
Even on a photo
But
exception,
that
okay.
only makes sense to me, but
Okay.
I do suggest we add it to that template letter of how they can.
I agree, and
well, the statute says we should give them an understanding of what they can do.
I would tell them that they can come in here and get it made at no charge.
Kathy is saying that she didn't hear what I said.
Okay.
So Paul Cox confirmed that they can provide an ID by 5 PM the day before canvas, even if they used a photo ID exception form. And then I suggested that we add it to that template letter of how to cure things.
Thank you, but please let these individuals know it's as easy as coming into this office, getting the ID made, and then presenting it. It's all one-stop shop.
So they wouldn't have to go through the hearing if they did that.
Right, right. They would have cured the
They
deficiency.
can just bring any other one they have.
And
Okay.
that might
That's-
be worth adding, is that,
I
and
think
do it
so.
by doing that, there is no need for them to
appear.
appear.
Yeah.
4 down, 2 to go.
Number 5.
This one, it says, it's again number 4, it says expired ID and application for a new ID, but no current photo ID.
Same thing.
That one's covered. If I can find it.
I know that the receipt for an ID, which includes a photocopy of the ID, is not acceptable. We saw a couple of those.
If we make that change to the letter, emphasizing that they can bring the ID in, then it seems that that we can use,
Right, we
we
can
have
do
the
all
same
this.
question, same motion, also the number memo is clear that in that case, by producing that ID that they've applied for, then their vote is counted.
Right.
I'm sorry, if they've applied for an ID,
They still have to produce it.
produce the
I mean,
ID.
that's the basis for a provisional,
Yeah.
the provisional vote that is to be allowed on condition that they produce what they've applied for. And if they don't, then what did that face mean? You just made a horrible face.
Does that mean that they could come in?
They
could come-
didn't, but they didn't have, they made an attempt to get an ID. They didn't have one at the time of voting. I feel like that's reasonably, a reasonable reason that they didn't have one.
Reasonable that they didn't present one?
Yes, at the time of voting.
Since we have no reason to think that's a false statement. Back to that.
Oh, there's, and on the form, it says, I applied for a photo ID but have not received it.
That's reason number 3.
Okay.
Well, does the numbered memo give us guidance to the effect that specifically that is an acceptable reason?
Almost has to be his own.
Actually read that today.
So you're asking, does it say
Is it
in the
on the
number?
form?
Yeah, she said it's number 3 on the
Does
form.
the form reflect the,
Applied, but we did not receive, and they're saying that they applied for it.
Right.
Well, then maybe we should just accept that one.
Right. That's why we're handling them individually.
Yeah, there's no reason not to receive that as a valid
Yep.
presentation and vote. A reason not to present and reason to accept the vote.
Good.
All right, well, since you made me be the bad guy,
Steve, I want you to be the good guy this time.
well, I realize it won't last long, but I move that the ballot of this named voter, I'm sorry,
That's down that way.
Glenn, what's the name?
The name is Carter, wait a minute, Kelsey Suzanne Carter.
okay, be accepted and counted.
The motion before the board is to accept and count the the photo ID, approve the photo ID exception form and count.
We have another.
Oh,
We're not
There's
counting
more.
anything tonight. If you approve it, it's
Oh,
approved.
okay,
It
okay, I'm
means
sorry.
you
That's a
have to leave on
semantics
Thursday.
problem, but we used the wrong term. Thank you. We're not. Include,
Anticipation.
so many loaded terms.
Making me wait.
Yeah, just stick to the form instead of the whole thing.
Yeah, the photo ID exception form.
All right, so the motion is to,
In the motion that the photo ID exception form of Kelsey Suzanne Carter be
accepted, good. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Thank you. So that ballot's good to go. The last one, again, number 4 is checked, and the reason is ID was taken by police. Ms. Pickens, do you have any more information about this one? Okay. This is the ballot of Jason Sterling Inman.
Strikes me that it's hard to say that that there's no relationship to a voter's ability to present photo ID.
Agreed. And I don't see how I can sit here and call that statement false. I have no way of knowing, one way or the other. Seems like a pretty solid reason not to be able to show an ID. I don't know the circumstances under which the police would relieve an individual of their ID, but I don't doubt that they exist.
They don't like it for some reason, yeah.
Okay.
Then there's some rule about how they have to return it within some length of time, but that's way out, that's above our pay grade.
It is.
So do we use the same motion that you have been using?
No, I think that, or the motion to approve.
Correct.
Yeah, I would move to approve that one.
All right, the motion before the board is to approve, no, to accept
Except,
the photo ID exception form
To be counted at a future
Of-
review.
yeah, just
Mr.
accept it.
What's the name?
Jason Edmond.
Mr. Inman. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. That motion carries 5-0. All righty. That is the 6, and I believe there's a 7th.
Oh, yeah.
Would you mind going through that again, Victoria?
It's the one that, hasn't been signed.
There are a lot, look at the forms that are in the sleeve. You need to see, in the sleeve, there are all 3 in there.
None of them are signed.
No signatures, none.
Now, I'm going to ask my experienced election officials how this works out at the site.
I have no idea how that got back to us with no signatures at all.
Yeah, not missing 1, not missing 2, missing 3 signatures.
Just a big old mistake. I don't know, who knows? The person was really busy, it got put aside, they thought who knows?
They handed it to them, said fill it out. When it came back, they just stuck it in the sleeve
Right.
and sent it
It's
through,
just-
but they're supposed to review it.
Yeah.
Right. So my concern on this is, how much is on the voter, how much is on us.
Get closer.
Well, the other problem, this came up last time, I think the other problem is number 4 is checked other reasonable impediment, but the only thing that's stated is other reasonable impediment. They just recite the language of the,
There's actually no reason, they just restated what
Number 4
was.
is,
And
right.
there are notes on the back of the envelope that the poll worker.
Okay, the notes say ID not provided, no ID, address not verified. So, does that mean, but they're in our system? They're not in the system. I don't know how we would even go about considering this one.
What's the name on them?
The name is Asher Reese, R-E-E-C-E.
It's so, there's no record of a registration on
No,
this individual?
we can't consider it.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
the same
And
day, the
there's
same day.
actually-
resi-
We looked at that earlier,
Yeah.
there's no same-day registration in it either. So,
Did you open it? 'Cause
No,
it feels
no,
like
don't.
it's stuck.
Don't.
Okay, right. So all we're looking at was this inside here.
Right. Yeah, we don't want to open that thing until we make a determination on what
Right.
we're going to do with it.
Is the exception form signed?
No, none,
No,
nothing.
nothing is signed.
Okay, so I'm looking at 18, which says, if the voter does not return to the voting place to sign the form, they must come to the planning board and sign the form by 5 p.m. on the day before canvass. If the form remains unsigned after that deadline, the form is incomplete. Voter's provisional ballot must be disapproved. That implies that this voter could come in and sign the form and cure that issue, but what about the rest of it?
Yeah, like they're not registered.
they're not registered, so they
They're
can't
not
register that
registered.
late.
And the same-day registration would require registration
voting.
by
Right, in
by
early
the-
voting.
in early voting. Okay.
Well, at early voting, yes.
All right.
I don't see
You gonna
any
make me
cure at
make
all
that
for that
motion, or
one.
you gonna do it?
Oh,
Now, look, Mary
Go
Ann
for it.
said she.
I'll make a motion to disallow that form.
And the reason for disallowing the form is the form has not been properly executed. There are no signatures. The voter has not signed any of the forms presented to the voter for signature.
and that the voter's not registered. Right.
Yeah, that all must be stated.
Okay, so how would you like that stated?
Now, the question, though, is whether this means that this voter should be notified and given the opportunity to appear, or whether we're just done with them.
Well, there is no cure for it.
I think we're
There's-
done.
I
if
mean,
they're
we
not
can,
registered.
there's nothing that they can do if they come in, because
Right.
they are not a registered voter.
Even if they signed all the forms, they
They
wouldn't.
can sign all the forms, but they're not a registered voter, they can't register this late. So I'll make a motion that we disallow this voter ID form and the provisional ballot.
Can I see the envelope?
Mhm. Here's this other one, by the way.
And
You
I'll,
keep track.
I'll take the other photo ID exception forms that are circulating. Just want to get them back to Victoria. These are for you.
No,
There should be 2 more.
I have it right here.
Okay.
there you go. Here's the other.
I don't.
Truth or false?
Here, let me determine if we're
No, it's just on the basis.
Should do the hearing letter.
Basis of extrinsic evidence.
Well,
They're not registered, that's it. It's my understanding that for same-day registrants, there's a verification step that occurs during voting prior to canvass. Has this individual been included in any of that? And the reason I ask is without the verification, it moots the question.
so we might need more information on this one. But it is possible that the poll worker made an error, didn't issue a same-day registration when they should have. And that should be considered when
Mhm.
adjudicating the provisional.
Are they,
So we
is-
should give the
This
voter
is a
every,
pro- This is not a provisional on election day.
it would be, well, this is a mess.
Right.
So,
Just right.
so
So-
if this person was not registered on election day, it would be a provisional and we would research their registration. which I don't know whether we're at that step with this one. And so that's why I think we just stick to the form, and then you see it later, once the team has reviewed the whole envelope.
And,
The whole, and can give you a recommendation on whether.
I like the idea of not making a final determination on this one right now. As Director Duncan pointed out, I mean, there's questions about the election officials' work on this.
Well, yeah.
But I'll also note that this was a vote cast during early voting
Okay, that makes a big difference.
and
Yeah, okay.
very early in the process.
Yeah, okay. So it was an election day, we're not talking.
No, this was on the first day of early voting
Yeah.
that this happened. And so, Ms. Brain, with all due respect, what I'd like to consider is a motion where we notify the voter about the deficiencies that we perceive in this and give them a chance to come in and be heard, as opposed to rejecting it outright.
Can it be cured?
That's my concern, is I don't see how we can cure it.
Well, if this was strictly on the voter, I'd get it. But I think if we try to get a little more information on this, and maybe it's the voter who can provide that information by reaching out to the voter with correspondence telling him that, you know, we've got issues with this, we'd like them to come in for a hearing. I'm hopeful that we could find out what exactly happened at the site.
Well, you
and see if we
also
might
need
be able to
look at
count
the
it.
Photo ID exception form. The other reasonable
Impediment
impediment
is
says
other
other
reasonable
reasonable
impediment.
impediment. There, it does not tell you why, and it's not signed. So all of these forms would have been handed to this voter, and this voter did not sign anything.
Right. I'm not sure that the voter was instructed to sign anything.
But does that make a difference?
I think it does. At least from my perspective, when the voter is in control of the whole situation, yeah, I depend upon the voter to complete the forms. But this was a tricky situation where they were dealing with an election official. And I'm not necessarily expecting the election official to hold the voter's hand, but I am expecting the election official to make sure that the forms were executed properly. That didn't happen. And we ended up with a provisional ballot. I mean, an election official spent enough time with this to make it a provisional ballot. And
Because these forms were printed. They had to come out of our machines. They had to be filled out by someone, because these options are not handwritten, they're printed.
understood. But
And this one is
Constable
initialed by
Blunders or criminal
an
guns
election
forever.
official. That one is initialed, but there's no signature, so they obviously initialed it without a signature.
they initialed it before giving it to the voter to sign, or
Or didn't look at it.
and
or-
this is the reason to have somebody come in and explain it. Because there's uncertainty about this one.
My question would be, do we have any information that this voter was given a same-day registration or not? Because if they weren't, I don't see how we fix that. We can bring them in and let them explain this, but we can't fix the fact that they aren't registered.
So something else to consider is that if they did not have photo ID, they would not have been able to same-day register. So that may be why the workers stopped the process of allowing them to vote or same-day register, because they did not have any ID to be able to register to vote.
But they when they, on same-day registration, can't you bring your photo ID in later before canvass and the registration counts? I just don't remember,
I
but
believe you can.
Yeah, you can.
If the same-day register, we don't know if the same-day registration was filled out, so I will change my motion to move this ballot, this provisional ballot, back to staff to find out if this individual filled out the same-day registration form, or if staff decided there was no point in moving forward.
Okay, but we're so far in the process that by the time staff can do the research, it's going to be Canvas. And I would just as soon send a letter to this individual saying, we've got issues with
Okay, my
with your
question
photo
would
ID
be, if we
exception
have an
form.
individual come in on Canvas,
Uh-huh.
can we fix it unless we have?
Well, they're going to
some
come in,
information?
they're going to come in on Thursday.
Yeah, but can we
hopefully.
register them if that form was never filled out? Is
And-
there a way to cure that? And I would not
I,
want to
I
send them a
don't
letter.
know. I want to hear from the voter what happened. I'd love to hear from the election official what happened too.
But the bottom line is, we have an unsigned document. I mean, unless somebody's gonna produce a signed document somehow.
We don't even know if if this person comes in, we don't know if they were the person that presented themselves at the polls.
Fair enough.
We don't have a signature to match.
Don't have a signature, don't have an
We
ID.
don't have anything. I don't know how we move forward. We can have somebody come in, and then we can say, well, I'm glad you came in, and you're not registered, and we can accept this ballot anyway.
So Mary Ann's motion is to reject the form and the registration. Is that correct?
That was what the original one.
Okay, is that still a motion you want to make? We
Yes.
can- All right, Mr. Quinn, perhaps you'd like to call that.
Will you repeat it, please?
My motion is to disallow this provisional ballot and the ID exception forms, registration forms that are with it, based on the fact that there is no voter signature and we cannot show that this voter is registered.
All right. Motion before the board is to disapprove the photo ID exception form and the ballot. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
I
Well,
believe it was to
time-
disapprove the photo election form and the registration to vote. What exactly were we disapproving?
No, it would,
No.
and the ballot for lack of a registration.
Something that would just be administratively easier is, not approving the form. I mean, we get into tricky things because we're gonna not approve it, then we have to
Have a reason.
notify.
Right, okay,
Yes.
so what would be easier?
Well, I don't know. I think that this is another example of where the law doesn't match with being practical.
I think-
But for the ballot side, I think the motion should be that you ask staff to present this as, suggesting for disapproval when it happens, so that you don't have to keep track of this one ballot that happened outside of the provisional.
Okay,
meeting.
so then the motion would be to reject the photo ID exception form for lack of a signature.
Well, I'm hearing that you're not going to the photo ID form at all. You're just saying,
And to refer it back to staff
okay, yeah, sure.
for a possible challenge. That's what it would be, possible challenge on
Tell us
campus.
again, what's going to be the easiest thing for staff to administer?
The easiest thing is to send a letter to this voter saying that the board has issues with your photo ID exception form and you're invited.
Timeframe does not allow us to send a letter. Timeframe says we have to call them or send an
Well,
email.
but, okay, but, let them know that they're invited to come in on Thursday, address the board, and basically tell us why their vote should count. I think administratively, that's the easiest way to go. If the person presents themselves, fine. If they don't, well, the question is settled. If they present themselves, we can listen to the presentation, we can consider the information provided and proceed accordingly.
But I repeat the question. Can we, at that point in time, allow this ballot to count if this person was not registered to vote? I don't,
we need to continue research, right?
Yes, I think that we go back, we look to see if we have an incident report, which we looked, just like a quick look for one, but we can look deeper. We contact the worker, obviously try to contact the voter, and then try to look into the SDR form. And then we present it on Thursday as a disapproved, just like the.
Or as a challenge?
Okay.
Well, I
board
think-
challenge
I-
or
I feel
disapproved?
like it would be the same as any other disapproved provisional. And I think that if we notify the voter, we're giving them more of an advantage for their ballot to count, where we're not doing that for the other disapproved. The other ones that we're recommending for disapproval. So I think that we, in this meeting, we make that decision on the photo ID exception form, but we move forward with the research like we're doing with the other provisional ballots.
Yeah, it's very messy, obviously, but by going, notifying them about the ID, it gives every chance. Because what if we do find, for some reason, there's a same-day registration form somewhere? Then at least this step will have been done and it doesn't get disqualified because we didn't do this.
Yeah.
But I think it's great that we're acknowledging that it's messy, because it is. It just is. But I think we need to make sure that we do everything we can to allow the voter to vote if they qualify.
Right.
But I now realize that with you guys, if the board decides to disallow the form, we're gonna notify the voter anyway, right, for the hearing?
And we already called them, right?
We did, yes. We
We've
do
already
have their phone
contacted them.
number. It seems to be their phone number, their voicemail has their name on it, but the mailbox is full. So we'll continue to reach out to them and try to.
And that's the only
No address.
contact that you have?
I mean, we do have an address on the form. I don't know if we'll be able to reach them by Thursday, by
But
mail.
we'll try.
But we'll try, and we'll try again with the phone number.
So just so I'm clear how this would work, the voter would be sent the letter and he or she could show up at Canvas and try to explain things as opposed to having their provisional ballot accepted or rejected on Thursday.
All they can do is talk about the form, the
Right,
photo ID
at,
exception
at,
form.
at the campus, okay. But in the meantime, could their provisional ballot not be rejected on Thursday for other reasons?
We have to research that.
That's, yeah, okay.
But you'll have a suggestion for us on Thursday.
Correct.
Fine.
Okay.
Chairman, could I ask a question?
Please, Kathy.
The mail will go out tomorrow. They won't receive that in time to get back for the board.
It'll
Any of
it'll
these.
be
We have no
research,
other way to
it'll be
notify them.
research on the other side, probably. It'll be on the staff,
Yeah,
what we can do.
This particular individual, as we've heard, we have a phone number. We haven't been able to leave a message because their voicemail box is full. I know that staff will continue to try to get in contact with this voter. And you're right, I mean, the prospects of a mail piece getting to the voter in
Yeah.
time
Not gonna happen.
are
What
way
about
too
a
remote.
text?
Yeah.
It's probably a
It's a cell.
cell, yes.
828-301 is a cell.
But there's no email address
Nope.
listed on here, so there's no way we could email them,
I'm just pointing out, you're talking about sending letters,
Yeah, right.
and
Yeah,
there's no
but-
way they're gonna get it in time to be
Yeah,
able
well,
to
the
come back.
statute says, send them a letter, but it also says if they're not gonna get it before 5 days, that we use email or phone, and that's what we're trying to do.
Except you have some phone numbers that weren't valid.
No,
No, the phone number was valid. They
Some
just,
of them were not valid.
That's
Right, and that's because, people who have been registered for a long time. The phone number we might have on record is the one they used when they first registered, and they haven't updated their registration with phone numbers. So I'm sure it's frustrating for staff. Believe me, it's incredibly frustrating for political campaigns because they use those phone numbers and are endlessly frustrated.
okay, so I'll change my motion to disallow the ID exception form for lack of signature, and turn this back to staff for
Additional research. All right, the motion before the board is to disallow the photo ID exception form for lack of a signature and to ask staff to continue to research. Patrick?
You cannot disallow this.
We're-
A voter has until 5 p.m. the day before canvass to sign the If you're rejecting it for the reason that they stated when they checked other, then you have to give them notice first. So the motion needs to reflect the others that have been made, that you are
Given
only,
notice.
making a finding of potential falsity and giving them notice.
Right,
not
we're
reason.
giving them the same notice that we're giving the others that we discussed. He's gonna have the opportunity to come in.
So we
here.
do
Right, I
need
just
to
wanna
change
make
the
sure
motion.
The motion
Yeah.
reflects that,
Yeah,
because that one did not.
Okay.
We're not rejecting the photo ID form.
We're just
otherwise.
disallowing it at this meeting. That's not a rejection
but
of
we use
form.
it the same terminology
Yeah.
that we
We're
use for the other
proposing
ones.
to disallow it.
Right,
Not the reason of falsity, but just
right.
because it lacks a signature.
Lacks a signature. And we're asking staff to conduct additional research.
Okay, so the motion is proposing to disallow the photo ID exception form due to lack of signature and turning back to staff.
More
Yeah, and asking staff to research
research.
this.
The voters registration.
Okay, so proposing to disallow the photo ID exception form due to lack of signature and asking staff to research the voter's registration.
All right, that's the motion before the board. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Thank you. The motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Ms. Pickens.
I have one last one.
Oh, I'm sorry. You said there were 7.
I did say there was 7. As we were doing our research, we found one that has a photo ID exception form, appears to have a photo ID exception form inside the envelope that we are asking.
I just want you to open something.
That's simple.
Oh, thank you. All of those.
I got one. There's one.
Jake has his special one.
Wow. Okay.
Here's the provisional version.
We're just looking for the ID exception form, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is inside.
No,
this
Right.
one.
That's what I'm not finding.
Oh, it's on the inside.
We're thinking it's on the inside.
We're hoping it's on the inside.
And
So
you,
you want us
you
to-
opened it, or you haven't?
We haven't.
No? Go
We
for it.
want
Yeah,
you
go for it.
to
Well, that's why,
agree
that's
that
why
we
we
should
invited
open-
Sally. So By the way, when, on our other votes regarding the acceptance of the voter right, of the provisional
Do
voting.
you wanna redo them all?
No, I just want to be sure we accepted, didn't just accept it, but we accepted them as valid. That the motion reads that we accept it as valid if we didn't, if we didn't reject it.
The 2 or 3,
That's all, just,
the 2 or 3 that we liked.
that we liked. Just
You're
wanted,
hoping to like push AK over the edge, just
I just want to be sure we have all the right magic words.
Tuesday.
That's a magic word, accepted as valid, accepted.
As valid.
I couldn't remember if that was in there or not, but I'm just being obsessive compulsive. Because that is my privilege.
It was at the end. Oh, there it is. The 180 plus 1.
There were two.
Chair Glenn made a motion to approve the photo ID exception forms as the of the 180 plus one forms that staff presented for the board's review. He just made a motion to approve.
That's fine.
Good, 'cause I'm not-
Ms. Stein, is there a photo ID exception form? in
There
that
is
envelope?
indeed, and it's signed, and the reasonable impediment is number 2. My photo ID is lost, stolen, or misplaced.
Great.
Okay, where
Give
would
it
you
back to
like?
Victoria and tell her to leave.
Out of here.
Do they need to vote on that one as
Well,
not
make sure
just
it's
the
signed
form
by the
as-
right
as
person. Yes,
Accepted
it
as
is.
valid?
Are we accepting the form, or accepting the ballot?
No, just the form.
Victoria, can I take a look at it?
Yes.
I thought we were passing it around and then passing it back to Jack to open. I'm
Sure,
sorry.
I'll move that form be,
Okay.
which appears to be complete, is accepted as valid.
Yes.
All right, the motion before the board is to accept this completed photo ID exception form as valid. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you for being completed.
And
Thanks,
I
Victoria.
would,
Thank you.
I would
Thank you,
listen to what Corinne said.
Yeah.
AK, you're staying.
Before we move on,
Now,
could
was
I
that-
just make a statement to, did you have
I
something?
just wanted to know, was that 9?
It was 8, wasn't it?
That was
It
the
was
eighth
8.
one that we looked at.
And the one she had.
Okay.
And this is probably clear. I just want to, again, have it in maybe the minutes that this seems to be a opportunity for some more quality, continuous quality improvement when we're training our workers about, are there times when maybe there's some practice in the training about when do you do a provisional ballot only and leave off the exception form completely. I mean, if they don't have a license, then that to me is a provisional ballot, and then come in and cure that. But if they start down the trail of photo ID exceptions, then that puts us into some territory we may need not to even have to go to.
Yeah. And, first time.
Sure, makes perfect understanding. I mean, I understand what happened. I could have
Sure.
done it as well.
Sure.
But just for future training, that might be something to look at.
Well, especially when we have one that has no signatures on anything and we don't know why. Maybe there's a good reason, but we just don't know why.
All righty. Thank you, Ms. Pickens. Next on the agenda is board challenges. Oh, right, yeah, let's take 5. That's right. Let's take 5. I was asked, and yeah, that's a good idea. Sorry about that.
I need a cup of tea.
Oh, I can go get my.
Hello. Break it to me gently.
I think that we should proceed with challenges, but the deadline was 5. You're supposed to do challenges.
I'm sorry, but we had clear instructions from the state on these plastic photo ID exception forms. We went through them. That is strange. I'm still grappling with that.
Yeah, she just wanted more time.
I think it's very nice.
Thank you.
Well,
And you know how I feel about the law. But my job is my job.
thank you. I'm gonna stick to
Oh, yeah. How did you do?
Mine chocolates. Some of the chocolate. There's a lot of us out there.
Okay, that's stir around.
Yeah, you can stir around. More than one thing too. It's not a one household.
It's really unprofessional to stir around and
You would not be the first person.
tomorrow.
And they don't have, they don't have a show on here. It's no longer, some of it's no longer being part. That was the hard part. Well, 8 days old until
Sorry. No,
I'm talking to myself.
well, and I incorrectly guessed how quickly you were about to move.
And he told me what he was with, did I write it down? The National Integrity, National Election Integrity. I'm guessing he is.
I saw enough to see something was happening, but then it looked like Victoria had an answer, so I didn't go back and read more, but I can.
Well, so my idea. But I just wanna make sure it meets.
It's okay, but
Somebody brought in ID and I think it's fine. I just wanna make sure everybody's on the same page. Hearing it. I think you got it to the right place. Okay. Victoria,
it's just,
she
Said the light.
Okay. Especially the first time. Whether you did or your staff did, good job.
Yeah, I don't remember. Even if it was me, I might not remember.
Right,
because
well, I know.
everything.
I feel like every voter you're talking about, I'd be like, what's their name? I know it's company.
Right.
Because there's so many names of just people calling through. We've seen so many times. But it's reasonable. But I think about having.
That's fine, I just wanted
Oh,
to
I did.
say.
Yeah. I had water.
I'm glad that happened.
Feel free to grab something next to
What? You're gonna look at it, and what was I just talking about?
Provisional ballots. That's what we're doing now.
Yeah, I don't.
You don't have a record of it? Victoria implied we got one.
As long as she just wasn't taking it, as long as she wasn't taking him off his word that we had it, but she said, I see it now, so I assume that means she literally saw it.
I can see why you got confused and also I just want to make sure everything falls through.
Yeah.
I don't think that's great.
Yes, no, please do.
But for, I
It's-
knew
it's
that was
not-
Gloria.
That's words. Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Are you? Because it's not clear.
Well,
It is not clear.
What are we talking about this month?
it would not have taken us long if we hadn't heard a single thing from the state. How about that? We would have whipped right through
That's true.
these if we had not heard from the
You
state.
think you would have all agreed?
Yeah,
I'm telling you, you would have had the exact same outcome as you just had
yeah.
without the state.
Yep.
And it would have been done 45 minutes sooner. I know better than to ask those guys for legal opinion. I've done it in the past.
Yep.
Well, Jackson would be proud. You all.
Why?
I didn't know Jay Watson.
Oh, no, I mean, I like the discussion, and actually Jay was frequently frustrated with the state, so you know, a report like that.
In the courthouse, and they're all busy.
Oh, I'm
I
sure
mean,
that's,
there's 30 court judges in there just hearing motions and stuff.
I'm sure it's,
All criminal motions, there's no civil motions anymore.
yeah, they told me there's only not any civil trials anymore. It's just, at least here.
That's right, they're all bunch of murder cases.
Yeah.
Okay. I've got 9 somehow. Well, I want to double check that at some point. I didn't put a name on the last one, but I've got a name on the others.
I have Ronnie and Azaria and Elizabeth and Michael and Kelsey and Jason and Asher. That's 7. And then 8 is the one that I never got the name, but it was the one that you opened.
Reese, was that Reese?
You got it.
Yeah.
No,
Those are the ones.
so I don't know what extra one you have.
This road, and this road.
All right.
Swan 2806, isn't it West Ashford?
Yep.
That's hold on a minute. 187 Swananoa Avenue.
I know it. Wow.
Let's see if I can find it on Google. Fronting.
Oh, Noah. That's interesting. Most of the ones in West Asheville are states.
You're right.
Of course, there's more than 50 roads, so.
So we're gonna refer
What's Indiana?
Wow.
forward the vote.
What's that one? Francis? Francis.
I like to spread it. See what you can get.
But you know, it can be.
I know, I believe it.
240.
And we don't
So it's
refer
not
for
far off of
prosecution,
240.
we refer for investigation.
There's Haywood.
It's not gonna let me get out far enough to see Haywood.
You need to recognize the other streets.
No, not a lot. I mean, I don't see Haywood, I don't see, I'm wondering if this is, near 240, it would probably be down near the Brevard Road exit.
Yes,
Down
down where
that gen-
40 and 240
Right.
kind of come in. I bet that's right.
Or, I mean, this is just, 240 it's showing you, so.
But, yeah, I bet you're right.
This
Down
is
in that-
probably, like if you go down Haywood, Brevard Road,
Clear your mind?
then off to the left down in there,
I bet that's right.
yeah, more likely where it would be. You thinking about mine?
Not me, it's a friend.
All right, folks, let's get back on track and try to get the heck out of here. Mr. Whitney, are you the one who gets to tell us about board challenges? Oh, you lucky devil.
I'm close, I can.
Always the one.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the next item on the agenda is item 4, board challenges.
Round 2.
Round 2, that's right. We've already had round 1. Mr. Whitney, what say thee?
So, just like in the first round of these on Friday, something has happened to make the ballot that these voters have cast ineligible for this election. The state was kind enough to release a massive list of challenges to investigate for the entire state on Friday. Not that we didn't have enough time to go through all of it before that meeting. Some of these are from that. They also released another list today, and there was nothing additional. So,
Oh, well, good.
yeah. Figure gets started at the top, and the first three are the voters. There's no better way, really, of putting it. Already voted, but not in the way you would think. So, all three of these were absentee ballots that were brought to the 11-4 absentee meeting.
Okay.
And they were scanned and accepted there. The lists go out the next morning to the polling locations so the workers can go into the software and mark those on that list as voted. Wasn't done, apparently. So all three of these people presumably checked, didn't see the status, and went on election day. And since we can't retrieve the election day ballots, it makes sense to disapprove the absentee by mail applications and challenge that ballot so we can deduct those
Right.
tallies.
Only one to a customer.
Right. And of course, even though it's most likely just somebody forgot to mark stuff and over, it's still going to be referred to investigation at the state board.
I see 2 ATVs.
Yeah. There's voter history for the third. Cannot find the ATV, the application to vote for it. It was one of the slower sites, and they came during a down period of like an hour and a half. They were the only voter. So I have no idea. I don't know. It may have literally fallen through the cracks at the site.
But you know that a ballot was cast.
Yeah,
Yes.
but you know that particular
Yep.
person did vote.
Yes.
Yes.
The site is balanced, so
Uh-huh.
it's not up or down.
Yeah, Mr. Quinn,
Mr. Aceto.
would you mind telling me again, what is the required order when we have two ballots that appear as to which is disregarded? Is it the first or the second, or what does
Typically, it would be the second.
the second one is disregarded?
Well, typically, the second one would be challenged.
The second one would be challenged.
But the state actually just put guidance out on this, like, during this meeting, I think.
Yeah, 'cause I remember reading about it, but and I'm trying to remember what I read.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But there was they laid that out explicitly in there, that since the absentee ballot can be retrieved, that's the one to challenge.
And the second ballot counts.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
It does. There's no other way to solve that problem.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But even though the ATV was missing, how did the day come out even? Why would they have, there would have been one ATV off?
Yes.
Why didn't it count?
The number of voter histories still match the number of ballots cast. When you take into consideration, I don't know where I was going with that. They were checked into the computer.
Right.
And then it just didn't get printed, or it.
Got
And-
printed and got mis.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
my guess is
Okay,
it
so,
was
right,
printed
so in
and,
the computer it matched.
Yeah, it matched, and
You don't have
the,
a paper trail.
yeah, this kind of thing happens at slow sites when it really shouldn't. But, yeah, that's the best explanation that I have.
So the ATV was printed, it just went someplace.
Just, yeah, went someplace. It could have not been in the binder all the way and fallen out, or.
right.
Or never got to the binder, yeah.
Yeah, or never got to the binder at all.
Is there any theory about why in slow sites? Again, training for reasons, is there any theory about that? It's just people not focusing?
Not focusing, having conversations someplace else, potentially. Yeah, I don't know.
know that slow children at play grow up to be slow men at work.
I guess while that is going around, I've got the next batch. Incidents reports and documentation. All of these are voters who showed up on the state's felon list. Some of them were previously removed from our rolls because of it, and came back same day registered and then popped right back up. The one that is highlighted on the list is one that is not in there. I've got it right here. It's a little bit different.
So I think these are people that the I'm sorry, I can't remember the name. The scene list did not identify them as having had their rights restored.
Correct. And I think 6 of these came from the state on that list.
6
I
what?
think I've done it with 3.
5. That's the one that the state put out on Friday.
Added 2 extra.
Yeah.
I may have been taking notes and not paying attention, but there's one that says SDR, you've got marked in blue. Is that something you're going to talk about? Or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The one in one that's highlighted in blue, we have been in contact with that voter. That voter has provided documentation stating that they have completed any, post-release items, the
said-
restitution and
It said rights restored.
rights restored. Yeah.
Is that a judgment for us to make, or does that have to be made?
Is that falsity of truth?
Is that made, who gets to make that judgment based on whatever, regardless of what they present? Again, I've got a numbered memo wrapping around the back of my mind, but that regardless, that their qualification to be restored must be acknowledged and communicated between the state organs.
Yeah.
And we can't make the determination based on what the voter presents to us.
What is VBL? FVBL again?
Fairview Branch Library.
Got it.
Thank you.
The voter did provide documentation from the state of North Carolina.
Okay. And is
stating-
it here?
It's in there. And we have Amy put help desk ticket into the state and has followed up on it. And they got nothing so far for us. They have not responded.
One of those paperwork things where it didn't get posted.
Maybe. I mean,
That was from when, October? No, August.
August, yeah. August is when, according to the voter, that their rights were restored.
It's on my birthday, so I think we ought to just.
Well,
Yeah.
there's a memo on it, right?
On
This, or a court case, one.
I'm not sure about the court case. And I would have to brush up on the memo that's about felons. I only know what's in
About what, yeah, at
in the
what point
challenges.
do we recognize, is the county board required to recognize the restoration of citizenship?
And how it gets there?
Yeah.
How it gets to that?
I think there's something fairly specific, but I can't remember what it was.
Are you talking about in statute or numbered memo?
Well, I remember it because it was on the certification exam. I don't know if I got it right or not. Anything that was on that exam stuck with me because I had to take it about 3 times in order to get it actually registered.
This is, so this is a form, sorry, I haven't seen this. So this is a form, we're asking, we want to know if this form qualifies or not as evidence of, right?
If you read it, is what it says, is that all rights are restored with the exception of firearms.
I feel like it should be scanned and sent to the state board.
I think it already has been.
Oh, it has been.
I think I did that like 2
And?
weeks ago.
And they said no?
They just haven't responded about it.
So the state board hasn't responded.
So the question is, does the prior guidance or the statute make a statement on that?
Oh, that's difficult, sorry.
Yeah, I guess that's, give me specific language to give them to follow up with.
Yeah, just,
Like refer to that memo or something.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. You know, I think it's pretty specific. I just don't remember what the conclusion was. And I may have made all that up in my mind, but I don't know. I was so traumatized by that exam that I can't remember much of anything that happened after that. I did.
Does the state board investigate these people since they,
Well, this came from the
Repres-
state board, didn't it? This
Yes,
list?
some of them did.
I mean, do they investigate them since they make a representation on the
Yeah.
the
they,
form that they're not a, I guess the authorization
Yeah,
of
maybe
vote?
that's their answer, is that
Not
we
convicted.
told you he's a felon, period.
Yeah.
Do you want to know that? Do you not understand?
Huh.
Well, that's fairly routine. I mean, that's part of the release condition. You get a letter. Yeah, they've got certain conditions in their sentence, and that's the statute that says that if someone has fulfilled the conditions of their sentence, and if there's restitution, they've paid it, or whether there's it's fairly specific. And then there's been court cases in terms of our appeals court. So this has been hashed over pretty thoroughly.
We're not gonna get it.
No, hopefully there'll be one on Friday at the challenge.
That would be if we need to take action tonight, what is it, considering that we really need, instead of, we need a legal determination about what our obligation is.
We can enter the challenge. It doesn't have to be,
And the challenge it with the intention of possibly withdrawing it.
yeah, the challenges have to be entered today.
Okay.
Today's the deadline.
Well, that would make sense to me then, that we enter the challenge and then
Get more.
defer to
Can you
further
tell me
investigation.
why the dates were changed on when they were mailed?
Oh, yes, I could comment on that. So we sent out a mailing, but I don't think it's gonna go to the board. And so whenever I'm reprinting, it just automatically puts today's.
That's what I
date.
thought, probably.
But that's not when it went out.
Okay.
The date that it went out is what I noted.
That's what I thought.
last four, three of them are voters that have passed. Two from absentee and one from early voting since, well, they've appeared on lists between last Friday and today. So, and then the last one on there that's flagged as representation is the same thing that we discussed for two voters last Friday, where it was somebody else with a similar name or the same name going in and voting on a registered voter's record, changing their name and address and all of that. But, you know.
What did we do with that one? I don't remember.
Sent a letter to those two voters notifying them, and then it's just entered as a challenge to, I mean, if they can provide something else saying that they are registered. There was nothing that we found that they are. And that's the one that's on top here. The first sheet is the early voting application, not ATV, showing the old name at the bottom. That was changed to a different one, and the address was changed. And the two sheets behind that are just two other pieces of documentation from the already registered voter. You can see there's a difference in the way that they sign the Y in the last name.
Yep.
Also, that's two different ways of spelling two different names.
So with respect to Mr. Burton, it seems like he's presented a letter from the state saying his voting rights have been restored.
Mhm.
Do we just need to clear that with the state, that in fact, that's what is going to be investigated further?
Yeah, like asking the state, is that acceptable proof?
Okay.
What if there's some miscommunication between their agencies and what gets reported down, kind of thing?
I see.
It'd be easy enough to mix that up, but it's clearly not the same person. Died prior to election day.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, there you go. There you go.
What's the date on it? Just to.
The date of death?
For the deceased voters, there was no death certificates available for them yet.
Okay.
So
So we're going off of this
Yep.
death lookup.
The registered deeds provides a list comparing their death certificates to our voter rolls. And so that worked for two of them, where they appeared. And then the third one was on a list that the state provides that is not matching. It's just, here's some names of people who have passed. They might be in your county.
Got it.
Yeah. It might be on your voter rolls.
And that's the one that just came out again, that there was no new information for.
That was a different one. Yeah.
Okay, I see.
So, Devin,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you probably already went through this, but tell me again how you figured out the representation voter.
And this
Through provisional voting.
11-3.
That one was through, the registered voter came in on election day, was showing it's already voted, and voted provisional. And, said that wasn't her, so we looked into it. That's too many changes.
Excellent example of why provisional voting is good.
So this particular vote will be removed
Yes.
because we're accepting the actual registered voter.
Yeah, the provisional.
Do
Or
we
that
know
would be-
who this voter was?
I mean, no. Other than, by name, because she changed the name on the record.
Oh, she changed the name.
Yeah, it's a similar name, but it's different. Yeah, name and address.
The poll worker did
The
that.
Yeah,
poll worker did
exactly.
that. Not, yeah,
The
the
voter didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, it was.
The poll worker looked up the wrong voter, super similar name, very understandable mistake. Then the voter said, oh, this is my address.
And
Oh,
they
and
did
my
an
name's
address
spelled
correction,
wrong.
right.
And they updated the record.
Yeah.
It's not even that
Out of 160,000,
Right?
pretty good.
So the voter didn't do anything incorrectly. I'm not blaming anybody. It was just a mistake.
Yeah.
Most likely.
And as,
It does happen. I've had it happen at the polls when somebody came in and wanted to vote, and it turns out that their son had already voted because there was a junior and a senior, and the poll worker picked the senior for the junior, and
yeah, it's a.
same name exactly, except senior, junior.
That's
No,
how
I
it
understand. I guess what I'm getting to is a provisional ballot will probably count, since
Yep.
it was, what about this person who came in, the person on the list, what happens to her ballot? Just not counted?
It will, yeah, they're not registered.
Oh, they're not registered?
No.
Oh, okay.
If they were registered, yeah, it would be, y'all wouldn't even be seeing it. We'd add the history to the registered voter, remove the record on the first
Had
voter.
motion, yeah.
Yeah.
And then.
Count the ballot.
Yeah, count the provisional.
I see, okay, okay, thanks.
Let's see the difference.
Oh. There's just two motions that are needed.
I'm so proud of myself. So that's good. I whipped it.
Yep, both. But understandable mistakes. And will be fixed.
So this shows up on Register of Deeds, but they don't have this one. Was this one of the voters that died?
Gary Pearson?
Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it's just not marked right here.
Oh, that's comparing what's in their record to what's in our voter registration database.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, it's like here's where it matches or whatever. The reason there's no death certificates yet is, I guess, whatever workflow they have enters it in the database before they scan in, like the actual physical certificates.
County departments are a little overworked right now, aren't they?
Yeah, that's the difficulty. I mean, we heard in our training last summer that the state board was short-staffed. They're trying to serve 100 counties, it's tough. No, but I just think statewide, during Canvas Week, it's gotta be nuts. Mr. Cox doesn't only hear from Buncombe County too, I'm sure.
What's his name? I don't see that name.
Oh, that's somebody that's somebody that wasn't, it's not on this list.
This is
It-
the only one we're worried about.
Yeah, this,
Okay.
this is just a person that passed away on the voter rolls that didn't vote.
Oh, we don't have to worry about the vote then.
Right.
Here's the other one, okay. So we're all gonna end up on a highlighted list. At some point.
That's a comforting thought.
Sorry.
Entered into the minutes.
We are all just statistics after a
Marianne would
point.
like to remind everyone
What? Oh,
of our
you heard that,
mortality.
huh? Sorry. Didn't mean me to be morbid, just.
So hurry up and finish this meeting.
All right. Thank you, colleagues, for reviewing the board challenges presented by Mr. Whitney. Ms. Moore, do you have any suggested motions that we might consider making?
I do, thank you for asking. There's two that I'm suggesting. One is a motion to disapprove the 5 absentee by mail applications that were presented in that group. 3 of them were the already voted and 2 were the death. And then the other challenge that the other motion that I'm suggesting is to make a motion to enter challenges on the 17 ballots that were presented. The absentee by mail just needs an extra step because you'll already approved it originally.
Which one was that one?
There's 5 absentee ones on the list, and they're the ones that start with CIB.
I'll say one of them was the 2 of them were death, so.
Yeah.
And 3 of them were already voted, okay.
But yeah, so they're the only ones that need the application disapproved, and then they would be also included in the 17 that are actually being challenged.
Okay, are we
Or to
challenging?
enter challenges.
Are we entering a challenge on the same day registration, or are we still,
Well, that's up to y'all. So if you want to enter a challenge, that would be 17. If you want to do something different with him, then that would be 16.
Today is the last day to enter a challenge.
okay, but the challenge will actually be decided at Canvas,
Mhm.
so we still have time to get more information. Okay. And is that misrepresentation included in your motion?
Mhm.
Okay, I'm good.
I mean, not my motion, and my suggested motion
Your
that somebody else
suggested.
should make.
The motion would be the simple one, I mean, the one of, where we're issuing the challenge for the 3 that already voted and 2 by death.
So you would, there's 2 steps. So one is disapproving the 5 absentee by mail applications.
Right.
And then the next step is to enter challenges, and that would include the 5. So
Got it.
those 5 just need 2 steps. They need like an additional step. Because they're needy.
So you need a motion to disapprove, and then a motion to challenge.
Yeah, because you're disapproving the application, and then you're challenging the ballot.
I'll make the motion to disapprove the application as to the 3.
That's
Fine.
the absentee
That's
map,
the
that's
fine.
the absentee application.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Aceto. The motion before the board is to disapprove the absentee applications on the 5 ballots that were just discussed. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Thank you. The motion carries 5-0. These are the 5. All righty. And Ms. Moore, could you remind us of that beautifully articulated second motion?
The suggested motion is to enter challenges on the 17 ballots that were presented by staff. That is, yeah. Or the number is based on what you want to do on here. So if you want to do something different with that highlighted one, but I'm taking 17 as if you include all of them.
Right. Everybody understand?
I think so. The highlighted one is the one that you're doing more investigation on.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
But it's a challenge in tool canvas.
Right.
Fine.
Okay, so the motion before the board is
Who made
to,
the motion?
excuse me?
Who made the motion?
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Ms. Brain's about to make the motion.
I will make the motion
And the motion is?
to enter challenges on the remaining 17 on the list.
Thank you.
Well, you need to challenge on the ones we're denying and
So
whether.
it's not the remaining, it's just the 17 ballots. There are 17 on the list. It's all
The 17 on the
All
list.
17.
Separated the other ones.
Yes.
All right, the motion before the board is to proceed with the challenges of the 17 on the list. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Thank you. That motion carries 5-0. Mr. Whitney, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just had one question about the
Yeah,
procedure.
Mr. Schultz.
So on Canvas Day, with respect to the voter who presented evidence that his voting rights had been restored, he'll get a letter, right? Does he actually need to show up for us to?
If the state board says that's good, then we can contact them and let them know we
Okay,
don't need to
okay.
come.
All these folks are going to be reached out to by phone or email if possible, since it's Tuesday. No. Yeah, got letters ready.
All right, anyone have anything more on board challenges? All righty, the next meeting date is Thursday, November 14th, day after tomorrow, at 5:30. Not, it's a 5:30 start, not a, what?
No, 3:30.
Oh, well, good. I thought we were going to be here all night.
We still will be here all night. We'll start at 3:30.
Thursday at 3:30.
Well,
Okay.
there you go. There goes another one.
Did my agenda say the wrong thing?
No.
Oh, I scribble down incorrect stuff all the time.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
All righty. Anyone have any questions, comments?
No.
I think it's fascinating to sit down on these discussions. I'm Cheryl Williams. The depth that you all go into questioning and the citations to the statute is just incredibly educational, and throw in the experience of poll workers. It's just fantastic. Thank you all so much.
Thank you,
for
Cheryl.
what you do.
We appreciate that.
It helps to be a little neurotic.
Obsessive compulsive.
Wonderful attribute.
If there is no more business to come before this board today, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you on Thursday.